In the shadows where truth and tales intertwine, we find the thrilling, the chilling, the downright spine-tingling. From the paranormal to the peculiar, every echo has a story. Dare to delve into the unexpected, the unexplained? Brace yourself, for you're about to embark on a journey where fear meets fascination. Stay tuned if you dare, for stories that will make your heart race and your mind ponder. Welcome to the realm of the eerie, the realm of the unknown. And remember, like and subscribe, if you dare. A late-night phone call jolted me awake. It was George, a senior ranger, his voice heavy with worry. One of his rangers had vanished while on the trail of a young woman, lost in the wilderness during a spring break camping trip. "I need your help, Dennis," he implored. "We need to find my guy before it's too late." I gave him my word, promising to be there by dawn. Rising from the warmth of my bed, I prepared for the journey ahead. A thermos of hot coffee was essential, a companion for the long drive and the even longer day that awaited me. Upon arriving at the national park, a sleep-deprived George greeted me. He handed me a backpack filled with supplies, and together we ventured off into the woods. The sun was barely peeking over the horizon. The air still held a crisp coldness. As I stepped out into the cool night air, I couldn't shake off a sense of foreboding. As we approached the campsite, I could see George's face pale in the early morning light. The campsite seemed to echo the dread we both felt. We scanned the area, our eyes landing on a series of small, barefoot prints imprinted in the soft earth. They led away from the campsite, disappearing into the dense forest. The strange, barefooted nature of the footprints left us with more questions than answers. We followed the footprints, their pattern leading us deeper into the encompassing forest. The trees seemed to close in around us, their shadows a stark contrast against the growing daylight. Suddenly, we stumbled upon a clearing. In the center of it, a circle of rocks surrounded a hexagram, the symbol eerily familiar. Burnt flesh tinged with a strange herbal scent lay in the center. The sight was enough to make anyone's stomach churn. I turned to George, confusion etching lines on my face. His own features were twisted in a mix of panic and disgust. He muttered something about an altar, about a woman in the woods. "A witch," he said. I couldn't believe my ears. Witches? In this day and age? I thought it was more likely the work of wayward teenagers playing a prank. But George seemed convinced otherwise. His conviction changed the tone of our search. We were no longer looking for a missing ranger and a young woman. We were looking for their remains. The reality of it was a bitter pill to swallow. We continued our search, following deep scratches etched into the tree trunks. The marks led us deeper into the forest, each one like a haunting beacon. I kept my hand close to my gun, ready for a potential bear encounter. But as we ventured further, we found something else entirely. George's face showed panic and disgust, and I could feel the chill of fear creeping up my spine. The forest was holding its breath, waiting for us to uncover its secrets. With a heavy heart, we ventured deeper into the woods, our eyes scanning the surroundings for signs of the missing ranger and young woman. The early morning light barely penetrated the dense canopy above, casting long, ominous shadows that seemed to sway with the hushed whispers of the forest. Our path was guided by the strange, deep scratches etched into the bark of the trees, like a macabre breadcrumb trail left by some unseen creature. The gnarled grooves were reminiscent of a bear's territorial markings, yet their sheer size and ferocity gave me pause. I found my hand instinctively drifting towards my gun, the cold steel a small comfort against the unknown. George was uncharacteristically quiet, his usual jovial demeanor replaced with a grim determination. His belief in the witch theory was unshaken, despite my attempts to rationalize it as the work of pranksters or a bear. The sight of that eerie altar, the hexagram and burnt flesh was etched into our minds, tainting our search with an unsettling sense of dread. As we trudged deeper into the forest, the scratches on the trees became more frequent, more brutal. It was as if we were following a path of destruction, the forest bearing the scars of a violent struggle. I could sense George's anxiety growing with each ominous marking, his eyes reflecting a mix of apprehension and resolve. Along our path, the forest seemed to close in around us, the trees standing like silent sentinels, their gnarled branches reaching out as if trying to ensnare us in their grasp. The air grew colder, the silence more profound, broken only by the crunch of dried leaves under our boots and our ragged breaths. The forest was holding its breath as if waiting for something, anticipating. Despite the chill, a bead of sweat trickled down my temple, my heart pounding against my ribcage. I couldn't shake off the feeling that we were being watched, that we were not alone in these woods. My grip tightened on my gun, my senses on high alert. With each step, the forest grew denser, the silence more eerie. Our search was far from over, and I couldn't shake off the feeling that the real horror was yet to come. Suddenly, out of the brush, a figure emerged. A woman, naked, her skin pale against the dim light of the dawn, ran directly into my arms. Her body trembled with fear and cold, her eyes wild with terror. I did my best to calm her, my jacket now serving as her makeshift cloak. "George!" I called out, but he was already at my side, his gaze never leaving the woman. I could tell he was torn between staying with us and continuing his search for the missing ranger. But duty called, and with a final lingering look, he disappeared into the dense forest. As I led the woman, who managed to whisper her name, Chloe, back through the woods, I couldn't shake the feeling of unease. Chloe was in shock, her body shivering from the cold, her mind seemingly miles away. I tried to get her to talk, to tell me what happened, but she only murmured incoherent words. Back at the camp, I found some clothes for Chloe. I made her a cup of hot tea, hoping the warmth would bring some color back to her cheeks and maybe loosen her tongue. But she just sat there, staring blankly into the distance, her hands wrapped tightly around the warm mug. I tried again, asking her gently about the events of the night. She looked at me, her eyes hollow, and began to speak in a hushed tone. She spoke of whispers from the forest, of a woman in a black cloak around a fire, of an uncontrollable rage and thirst. As I listened, I couldn't help but feel a chill run down my spine. I looked back towards the direction George had disappeared into, the eerie silence of the forest amplifying my growing fear. As I looked back at George, I couldn't shake off the feeling that something was terribly wrong. Back at the campsite, Chloe, now clothed and sipping on hot tea, began to speak. Her voice was shaky, barely a whisper, but the words she spoke were chilling. She told me about the whispers that had drawn her deeper into the forest. Whispers that weren't just sounds, but something more. Enticing, compelling, a siren's call she couldn't ignore. She described a woman cloaked in black, standing in the heart of the forest, surrounded by darkness save for the flickering light of a fire. The woman was chanting, her voice echoing through the trees, a haunting melody that filled the air and sent shivers down Chloe's spine. Then she spoke about the rage. It was as if a beast had awakened within her, a primal force she couldn't control. It surged through her veins, pulsing with every heartbeat, consuming her, making her feel powerful and terrified at the same time. But it was the thirst that truly frightened her, an insatiable thirst that made her feel like she was burning from the inside, a thirst that seemed to demand something more than water. As Chloe recounted her tale, her eyes seemed to lose focus, as if she was reliving the horrifying experience. Her hands trembled as she clutched the mug of tea, her knuckles white from the strain. The forest around us seemed to grow quieter as she spoke, as if the trees themselves were listening to her tale. The crackling of the fire seemed louder, the shadows cast by the flames dancing on her face, making her look even more haunted. I tried to make sense of her story, to rationalize what she was saying, but the fear in her eyes, the raw terror in her voice, it was all too real. And it made me think, could there be some truth in her words? Could there really be a witch in the forest? And had she somehow turned Chloe into something inhuman? As I listened to Chloe, I could feel a shiver run down my spine, a feeling of dread engulfing me. Suddenly I noticed a change in Chloe. Her eyes, once filled with fear, now glowed a fierce, predatory yellow. Her teeth, previously normal and human, had morphed into sharp, animalistic fangs. A chill ran down my spine as I realized the transformation unfolding before me. Out of nowhere, George burst onto the scene, his face a mask of horror. Without hesitation, he drew his gun and fired a shot at Chloe. The gunshot echoed through the forest, but it was quickly drowned out by a bone-chilling howl. It was a sound that was neither human nor animal, a sound that would haunt my dreams for years to come. Chloe, or whatever Chloe had become, bolted into the dense forest, disappearing as quickly as she had appeared. We were left standing in the eerie silence, the echoes of her howl still ringing in our ears. As the echoes of Chloe's howl faded, I was left with an unsettling question. What happened to the missing ranger and Chloe? And so, our tale of the Campfire Horrors comes to an end. Until next time, sleep tight. Before we part ways, dear viewers, remember to stay vigilant. The campfire horrors may have been extinguished for now, but the embers of the unknown always remain. As you lay down to sleep tonight, don't forget the lessons from our tale. Safety is but a fleeting moment in a world of unseen. So if you've enjoyed this journey into the abyss, don't forget to ring that bell and smash that like button. Do it before the thing under your bed decides to pay you a visit. Oh, and keep those night lights on. You never know what might be lurking in the dark. Thank you for embarking on this terrifying adventure with us. Until our paths cross again in another tale of the unknown. Goodbye and sweet dreams, if you can.